Something a little special. I am going to go live and reading some of the chapters from the book. Couple of pages for everybody to follow along and just to get some love. You know what I mean? See how we doing. You know. So if you don't really know, if you haven't been following the Devil's Paradise saga, um, go back. I'm not going to do a recap. I'm not. I won't. I'll spare you the, reading and the summary of it again. But I will tell you that I chose to write this novel as a way to um, there's a message to Black Americans, middle class Black Americans who knew nothing of street life, and I felt like I was almost like an undercover reporter in a way where I was able to have an adventure, go into this situation where, life changed for me. But all of the things that I learned while I was there, here's what happened in my learning process. Here's the things that I learned. Here's what I came up with. Um, and here's what maybe can save you from having the same crazy scenario that I was involved in. Any young people that are witnessing, reading, or listening to it can also get something from this book. So that was my objective. So I am going to read from chapter 3, which is called Gladiator School. And this was when I first got to prison. I was sent through the 16-hour processing system at Rikers Island, which was the largest holding facility in America. At my arraignment, my public defender told me that this was going to be the beginning of the horror show. 15 years of life was the time that I was given for this crime that I committed. Being locked in a cage and not able to see the possibility of freedom for a minimum of 10 years ran through my body like a brush fire in the Midwest. I was frozen with fear, and tears of regret filled my eyes. The public defender felt my grief because I was also a young brown skinned brother that he could relate to. Getting a 25 with an L on your back is a crazy sentence. Getting 15 to life with an L on the back might require that you need suicide watch, is what I was told. I arrived in the 4 North at 3 a.m., no cells. It was a large room with 30 beds lined up on either side of the room. Had a TV room slash dining area, a bathroom with 4 toilets, 4 sinks, and a single shower that allowed for the female guards to observe everything on 3 different cameras. The inmates are there were all under mental observation, or they were hiding out because general population was the center of the cesspool of the danger that we were all surrounded by. Others had been injured in fights and were recovering. I thought this is what gladiator school was. I thought that I was in the beginning of this prison scenario, and I was dead wrong. Life in NIC was quiet because nobody wanted to return to the nightmare of general population, and my demon remained hibernated. He knew he could return at will, and he wanted to feed whenever. He knew that this was the start of his own quest to Devil's Paradise, so he waited like a cobra on the hunt, ready for his time to strike. Now, my lighter side grew slowly because the torture that my family endured caused them to visit me almost every day in hopes that they could free me from this hell. I was also allowed to make phone calls, which gave me a little love and moments of happiness, but never enough to fill my lighter side enough to be able to free itself from these confines. 2 months, and I was reevaluated by the jail psych, and she determined that I had adjusted well to my present situation, as if I had a choice. I was mentally ready and officially ready for gladiator school, she said. My next stop was Queen's House of Detention. I was sent to administrative segregation, aka protective custody, aka Punk City for everybody that's locked up. This area was different from NIC. and it was much closer to the belly of the beast. There were 4 tiers with 15 cells on each one, and the day room was in each cell. There's a TV room with park-style benches. I was in 3 upper 9 cell. The CO led me to my new home as the gate banged closed behind us, and it rattled in my body like something I had never experienced. The 8 by 10 box was equipped with a steel toilet, a locker, desk, a bed, if you can call it that. The paint peeled from the walls, revealing the years of destruction that had been seen in this stench. It was summer, yet the demonic odor gave a chill to the whole air that caused me to tremble in fear. It was summer, but yet I was still cold. It was hell after the witching hour, and I sat on this plastic fireproof mattress and I peered through the gate, and I could see the streets of Queens, but it was truly a million miles from my home. As I dreamt of the world I wish I could touch, I heard a voice scream out the words to their favorite song, and I figured it was just one demon listening to their Walkman. But 10 minutes later, another one, and then another. Each cell occupied, each cell's occupant yelled out in song, some kind of different language always. It was like an orchestra tuning their instruments all at the same time. But the songs were not sung in joy. They were more like screams of pain, as if each of them was trying to push away or cover the sorrow and the grief that he was feeling with these words. The sound built fear in my soul as it got closer to my cell. Then, on a darkened tier, flickering light danced across the floor. It was like a torchlight. I couldn't imagine where it was coming from, but as it got closer to my cell, all I could think about was screaming, but nothing happened. The bone-chilling songs of all the different inmates was screaming in pain, and I could hear their cries. My heart pounded as the dancing torch lit brighter, and then it got closer. 10 cell. Through the walls, I knew I was next. But next for what? What was I about to experience? What would make them cry out so loud? So I put my headphones on in some childish way, hoping that it would protect me if I couldn't hear it. It couldn't hurt me. And then it came. A lurking phantom cloaked like the Grim Reaper himself, stood tall enough to have his head rub against the ceiling. The hooded face was engulfed in darkness, but small balls of flames hung where his eyes would be. In his left hand, he held a huge prehistoric book that was on fire, but it didn't burn. And it was in his right hand was a dagger of flame, one that formed itself into the sharp shape of a blade, almost like a pen. Being struck with fear is a total understatement. Then the demon spoke, not in this loud, defining, scary voice, but in a low, monotone whisper, yet I could hear it so clearly. He said, I am the demon pain, here to bring you what you asked for. Asked for, I thought. I didn't ask for shit. Oh, yet you did, demon. You chose this path. Each action that brought you closer to your goal called out to me. In this book are tales of horror, bloodshed, and torture that have been kept for as long as you demons have existed on this earth. With this dagger, I will share the tales with you, and I will carve them deep in your flesh beyond the bone and marrow, into the very depths of your soul. Prepare yourself, warrior. Here comes the wrath of the demon pain. And without another word, he passed through the bars like he had not even existed, and I could not move. And then he gave me 100-fold all the grief, pain, and destruction that I had caused and I had brought to others. Yeah, the demon pain gave me everything I gave, and I just couldn't even understand what was happening. I tried to scream out in song just like the rest of them, hoping to escape this eternal plane that he was blessing me with. And then my demon woke, and my demon took great pleasure in the sorrow that was making him stronger. And when the demon pain finished and began to move on to the next cell, He looked back at me and said, "This will not be our last visit, demon. So prepare yourself for much more to come." The next morning, I was waking at 6 a.m. for chow. I joined the line of demons after a quick brush and a wash. The food was served on a lower tier and it brought me back to the day room so all the waiting demons can sense the energy of the new arrivals and the recruits. There, the army of demons began to formulate. Hours after the short meal, I sat in my cell and I watched the demons mull in anticipation of what was going to happen next. The head of the dark army stepped to my cell door and he spoke to me. He let me know that the Spanish niggas was going to be making me pay rent. I would have to give a minimum of 2 packs of cigarettes a day, 1 carton a week. And if I didn't have it, then I'd have to get it. Of course, my demon, his rest was over. Confrontation would come and he was ready to feed on this, be in this war. The dude who was talking to me was Turmoil, the black nigga's general. He told me that it was a no-win situation. If I stood alone, and their homemade weapons would definitely release the blood with pride. But if I joined his army of soldiers, I'd be protected. Instantly, the demon saw their treachery in the form of friendship, but it was acceptable in this gladiator school, and I would find a way to thrive in it. Now, on my tier, there were 7 dark soldiers, black niggas, and 7 light soldiers, Spanish niggas, which kept my tier relaxed. But on Term's tier, there was 13 black, 1 Spanish, and 1 Caucasian, which was perfect for him. 2 lower tiers were a toss-up though. They were consistently battling because of it. No beef ever was ever quiet. It was always cracking downstairs. On occasion, the beef would spill up to the upper tiers, but for the most part, tension was kept to a minimum. Demons that are kept coop up and are not allowed to feed usually want to release on each other, and that's why there's so much violence in prison. The next days, turmoil helped me to train my body for war and my mind for battle. There were many rules and regulations in this new environment. Turmoil also realized I had an asset that would separate me from the higher ranking officers. I had an education. 95% of the population couldn't read. I could help, and they didn't trust the public defender. So anybody who didn't trust that their guard was, I could also do something for them, and I could read their paperwork. True, I was not a lawyer, but I knew more and I understood more than the rest of them. I also had the gift of verbal finesse, which could bring my demoness down to their knees in submission, which was as much greater an asset than in this demonic realm. The demons realized how much turmoil depended on me, so I helped him to sustain major parts of his demonic lifestyle. Without the demonesses, this would not be something that you could do easy. That means no visits and nobody from the outside world will kind of get to you. So they labeled me the professor. That was my name, and I had a better understanding in the art of war than he did. Later, I would realize how much 2 years of psychology and sociology classes would actually help me out in this dark army that I was in now. I had the ability to control the dark army, but not yet the desire, and turmoil had to make sure I stayed that way. If the other soldiers recognized my status and gave me what my hand called for, I may want to taste the sweet juice of power and become intoxicated and throw the chief off his throne. What's good, peeps? Just reading a little something from chapter 3 of Devil's Paradise. If you haven't got a chance to actually jump on and pick up the book, do so right now. You know what I mean? But right at this point, I just wanted to come on here, read some of the chapters, and give you a feel of what you're gonna get from the story. I'll probably do this once a week and just read random pieces of the book and see how y'all feel about it and give y'all an aspect of the story that most people won't ever be able to get, which is a live reading from the author. Quickly, I rose in ranks and I sensed that there was jealousy within my crew, but their fears of my unknown power always kept them in their place. Periodically, some violence took place, which also let them know I wasn't a sucker. I was able to take my reputation and turn it into a persona which helped to save my life. I hadn't had a fight that was too crazy, but Turmoil made sure that that was something that I always stayed strong with. He didn't really want me to get into too many fights because he didn't want violence to happen to me. He needed me too much. My charges mixed with my street reputation kept the wolves at the gate, so I was kind of safe in a weird way. A month after I arrived in Queen's House of Detention, a new young recruit came through. They put him in the cell next to me. He was strong of body, but with the mind of a child trapped in a young man's body, the perfect soldier. Turmoil ordered me to train him and put him under my wing as my student. I tried to elevate his combat tactics, but building his mind was useless. I found out later that he had some kind of disease that made him have to have daily medication just to maintain regular activities. So he kind of quickly became my little brother, and I protected him mentally, and he tried to protect me physically, even though he didn't need to. My demon saw the asset in him. If I was Shaka, if I was Shaka Zulu, then he was the Bumani, the one who would watch my back with no resistance. My new demon brother had an uncanny ability to get himself into trouble. The demon keepers allowed my brother once to neglect his daily dosage, and then his mind slowly began to deteriorate, which made him unsuitable and prone to trouble. He forgot the rules and the regulations. He didn't understand that some of the things that he was doing was going to get us all in trouble. He forgot that the battle lines should not be crossed, and if he did, trouble would happen. So one day, the light skinned chief, the Spanish chief, his name was Drag, he was in the day room watching Caliente, which is the standard at the time on the weekends. Every house in Gladiator School domain that is infested with Spanish or black demons watches Caliente. It was an unwritten law. We had Soul Train and they had Caliente. Now, Drag was well into the second half of his program when my little man came in and changed the channel without even going through the proper channels. Now, no soldier can violate a chief like that without a direct order from the higher ups. There's a protocol. Nor is he permitted to flip the channel while the captain is present. Quickly, Drag stepped to my little man, and just as he was about to bring the blaze, I intervened on his behalf. And just like that, battle terms were set. The next day after the war council, the decision was made. The conditions of battle had to be as such. Now, you see that? You see how fast shit jumps off in here? One day you're breaking up a fight, and the next day you're setting the terms for a war. My position in the Dark Army always prevented Drag from making moves on me, and it kept his squad at bay. But my little brother didn't have the protection that I had, so he was an expendable commodity. Once the word got back to Term that his head soldier was going to be doing battle, he quickly came to my aid. Once he found out about the situation, he told me I should reconsider my position. Reconsider my position? Fuck does that mean? To him, some people could be sacrificed in order to keep the peace between the armies. But his head soldier in command in trouble would surely call for him to have the force to put his hands together. And he couldn't have that. And he wasn't ready for that. He knew the army would be back me. Sorry. He knew the army would back me. And he knew that doing so would actually make me be a Brutus to Caesar scenario. He had to back my play. And if he didn't, then he would have to face the whole squad. If he left me to face my army alone, he would see that it would seem like this was an act of treachery against the darkness. And then the other demons would recognize that Term was operating in weakness. and that he could not have. But because my little brother had nothing that the Dark Army needed, he was expendable. I disagreed, and the demon and I wanted to save him from our own demonic reasons. As a dark soldier, I had to accept the fact that everything was done to make a move of power, and nothing about my little bro was giving power signals. As the moment grew near, the demon seed extended little energy to fight my lighter side. We were all locked in, and my little brother did not get locked in that day, which means that he was open for problems. I couldn't do nothing about it. I had to just stand by and listen. I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to hear, but I sat in my cell and fought myself as I heard my little bro crying out for help as the Spanish cats tore away his innocent soul with those tools of destruction, those homemade tools of destruction that they all kept so well hidden. Tools that made sure that the gods of blood would be well fed. I covered one ear and I blocked one eye so I didn't have to watch. Then as they dragged his crimson then as they dragged his crimson soaked body past my cell, I tried to do everything I could not to look. By my third month, the professor was unable to escape the fact that Turmoil was a weak fool and he didn't know how to command this army, and his thoughts of loyalty began to twist my mind. Then I realized that I was going to have to overthrow my demon mentor. He also had a secret hate for me. He also had a secret hate, one that I had for him for allowing my little bro to get sacrificed by these Spanish jackals. In some way, he knew that soon it would be our turn to be sacrificed. Like, if I didn't do what he wanted me to do, then I was going to have to pay for the consequences. And I wasn't down for that shit at all. At the end of the summer, the third floor of Queen's House of Detention was scheduled to go under construction, and all the demons were going to be moved to 6 Lower in building C-74 on Rikers Island, the oldest and the worst facility in America. 6 Lower was a V-shaped floor, north and south. At the point, the corrections officer had a bubble which allowed them to see all 60 cells and the day room. But somehow it never stopped any blood from being shed nor any illegal activities from taking place. Strangely enough, all the chiefs and the seconds in command were all placed on the south side, and only a few soldiers were there with them. The rest of the soldiers were all placed on the north, and we didn't realize at the time, but that was the chance that I was waiting for. The first days of the were the first days, a majority of the Spanish and the black dudes were left without direction, supervision, if you could say, which sounded like chaos at first, but it was the best opportunity for me. On our side, 5 cells were of civilians, and the next 13 were for Spanish and blacks. The first week in 6 Lower, we spent fighting the CO for power. C-74 was known for controlling their demons, but we were not prepared to just give in to them, which meant that we spent a lot of time battling the riot unit, aka the Ninja Turtles. The battles where the unit were definitely fierce and plenty. They kept us locked in. We stayed having no phone privileges and no television privileges. The shakedowns and the beatdowns were just at the peak when the demon pain came for double visits. This war between the demons truly evolved, and it was something that all of our demons enjoyed because they loved violence. Every morning and night, our cries could be heard throughout the fort building like blood-curdling wails of a banshee at midnight. The demon pain wrote chapters upon chapters in our flesh, never letting the wounds heal and bringing new meaning to his namesake. I soon found my demon waiting anxiously as the cell doors, begging for his blessing, just so he can become stronger for the next action. My family, they began to see the change, and when they came to see me, they always respond, "What's happening? Is everything okay?" And I would always tell them, "It is what it is, and I'm here, do or die." which terrified them. It got so bad that my mother reached out, found one that brought love to my heart, and let her know that I was locked up. Aisha came for a minute, and that kind of gave me some hope. But the visits weren't long enough to really make any change. And my prison politics was outshining anything that I was able to surpass. Thank you for listening in. It's Doc Ramadan. Please feel free to follow all the videos that I have posted. Listen to everything. Definitely feel free to share with your peoples. But I'm out of here. I haven't done a reading in so long. That was just crazy for me to kind of be reliving the experience, reliving what I'm listening to, or just reliving what I had written already. Sometimes as a writer, you just get to read in editing, but when you read it out loud to people, it's a whole different thing. So yeah, appreciate you listening and thank you. And feel free. I'll be back next week, Wednesday, for another reading. Tap in with me.